Hey folks, what's up? This is Johnny. Thanks for tuning back into one of the Owens Recovery Science podcasts here. And so today I think we got another great podcast for you. And we're going to really talk about a cool topic. It's how is a little bit of stress actually a good thing? It's this hormetic kind of talk that people say that the body needs a little stress, doesn't need a lot of stress, but short doses actually make things tougher and can make things better. And so we can really cause a significant short amount of stress by inducing hypoxia into a limb through our blood flow restriction. And from that, there's all sorts of pathways that we're going to keep talking about and hitting on that can maybe be beneficial for us as clinicians. And a big one from this little bout of hypoxia is the ability to create angiogenesis. And you know, who doesn't need some more capillary beds out there, and even a neuroprotective role and a neuroregenerative role that we might be able to induce as well. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. Very easy for us to actually pull off at BFR, it seems. So we're going to kind of take a little bit of a deep dive into that. And then I'm going to have an interview with my buddy Drew Marcos, who's a physical therapist out in La La Land. He's got a cool facility called Modus out there that he runs, kind of takes care of all these pro athletes and you know, the big movie stars or whatever those folks do out in California. So we're going to talk about how he's incorporating BFR in his facility, and also we want to really discuss this very cool partnership we have with him and Owens Recovery Science and Air Jordan with their new Jumpman 23 facility in downtown LA, which is not only the place to check out all the coolest and greatest Air Jordans on the first floor, but has the world's first and only glass basketball court on the top floor. And even more importantly, the whole NBA experience on the second floor with what a lot of the NBA athletes will go through, including blood flow restriction with some of our stuff there. So it's an exciting podcast. Thanks again for listening to it. If you like us, please rate us on iTunes. Give us a what's up. Leave comments. That's great too. With any feedback. If you have questions, please send them in to info@owensrecoveryscience.com. We'll send you a nice T-shirt, an Earn Your Deflate T-shirt. And if you want to find out more about us, go to owensrecoveryscience.com. And that's a lot of requests. What a jerk, man. So I'm done. Let's roll into the fun stuff. All right. Thanks.
This is the Owens Recovery Science Podcast, hosted by physical therapist Johnny Owens.
What's up, podcast listeners, and welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a while since our Tori says I say it's been a while nonstop in this podcast. So every time I do it, I'm going to use the "it's been a while" voice. So welcome back to our Owens Recovery Science Podcast. Got our same core group of guys back again: Ben Weatherford, Zach Dunkel, and Kyle Kimball. It's just too early today. I couldn't come up with good nicknames for you guys again. So what's up, everybody? Everyone back in their hometowns today?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So today it's going to be a fascinating pathway kind of talk, and this is something that we're very interested in, and have some folks looking at some research with us as well, and that's this hypoxic kind of upregulation you can make with something called HIF-1A, hypoxia inducible factor, and maybe even more importantly, maybe not as importantly, we'll discuss that, vascular endothelial growth factor. And it's fascinating because these are very powerful pathways that do things like angiogenesis, potentially neuroprotection, and all sorts of other things that might be beneficial that we can control just by creating these hypoxic states. And so we'll mechanistically talk about it and you know, what clinicians might want to think about more than I'm just occluding for muscle size and hypertrophy. And Zach Dunkel, this is like his best day ever, because if we do have a nickname, he's Zach VEGF Dunkel. So we're going to lean on Zach to really get into the deep dive. And if he goes full on Rain Man, we'll pull him back in because we don't want to lose listeners at the 20th minute. Anyways, where we've been in this BFR world recently, I think it's just always cool to see the growth of this. So I'll kick off. I've been home for 2 weeks. Again, it's awesome, man. But when I'm home, you know, it's like we gotta get things really moving here. So it's Asia week, and so we solidified moving into Asia. Taiwan's our our first country that will have we have new trainers, distribution, and all sorts of things there. So Andy, the head guy, and that's not he's got I think a fake American name he uses because I can't pronounce his real name. Flew in from Taiwan to finalize it, so we're moving out there. Then I speak Friday at the annual conference for TPTA, doing a 2-hour talk on blood flow restriction, and then jump on a plane Saturday morning to South Korea. Jump on a plane Saturday morning, Sunday night, I end up in South Korea. Monday morning, jump up, teach, and then Monday night, pass out probably. Hopefully get a little bit of kimchi in, and then jump on a plane again and head back. So doing a bunch of military bases there. So that's my upcoming. I was in Portland, Maine. Have you guys been to Portland, Maine before?
No, never.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like ACSM in Boston a few years ago, I had that extra time because we were working with the Patriots about 4 or 5 days later. So I drove up to Portland, Maine, and man, fell in love with it. So we ran a course there. But Columbus weekend is the last actual like real kind of weekend there, and they shut everything down pretty much after that. So we did the course. Not knowing it on Columbus weekend, and you roll into town, and there's like all these cruise ships there, and trains are coming in. And it's like the invasion of the old people all over the place. There was like 900,000 old people. And so anyways, it was a little bit crazy with that, but we had a cool course up in the Northeast. What about you, Kyle? Where you been and what you been up to?
Let's see. At the end of September, I was out in Overland Park, Kansas, or basically Kansas City. I had some of that Kansas City barbecue, Johnny, and it was not Texas barbecue. It was
garbage.
It was better than what you can get in California. I promise you that.
Well, everything is,
but it was not. Well, I mean, Mexican food out here is good. You got to give us that. Like the Tex-Mex thing, you just have to take a nap. You can't eat that midday.
Yeah.
And then last weekend I was, on Friday last week I was at the Air Force Base in Tucson, Davis Monthan, 48th Rescue Troop there with pararescue guys.
Yeah.
That's where they have a big boneyard of airplanes out there, of airplanes that aren't like totally decommissioned, so we could ramp back up if something gets crazy internationally. And so that was really fun. I got a little bit better understanding of kind of this high performance direction that the military troops or battalions, I don't even know the right word. You guys are the abbreviation people. I don't know how it goes, but so they were kind of telling me how that's all been going, and that was fun. And then in that course, my Astros lost the night before that course, so I was a little depressed, and my Bitmoji popped up there, and sure enough, there's a dadgum Red Sox fan in my course.
They're all over, man.
Just blistered me all day long. Finally showed up after the last break in a Red Sox cap to just kind of cap off the day. So it ended on a low note, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun working with
Red Sox look good, man. I think they're going to take it. They're just
they look really tough, and their PT Adam Thomas is a really, really good dude. He's got a better beard than I'll admit that. I won't admit that for Dunkel though.
That's impressive,
right? Yeah. And then I got a course coming up here at my clinic in Camarillo in Camarillo on November 10th. I'm looking forward to that. We should have a good crew of people. I got a couple of my PTs here that we need to certify that are newer to the game. And so really looking forward to just hosting at our course. And
so anybody interested in California, get over to Kyle's course. Our California courses always are awesome. And
and this one, Johnny, I got a brewery right next door to me. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm buying beers after the course. Beers are on me the first round. So if you want to come to that course, come on, and you can have good beer after.
Why are you waiting for after?
Well, I might not be waiting.
Cool. What about you, Zach?
So I was just up in Baltimore last weekend at Sinai Hospital. Really good group of folks. The head guy up there, big total knee researcher, really interested in the kind of the fibrotic suppression that we may be able to get from the use of BFR with specifically total knees in that population, because that's a huge thing that we see a lot of times, is that muscle just becomes very, very arthrofibrotic. after the surgery. So the potential to limit that, restore muscle function, and then obviously that population is going to be the older population. So they were all pretty fascinated with the geriatric effects. And we talked about the new systematic review and meta-analysis that was just published last week as well,
which had amazing effect sizes. So that was impressive.
Yeah.
What were the numbers on that?
Yeah, over 2 when we're talking strength training with low intensity, and then when we're talking walk training, where effect size is over 3 for increases in size and strength of the muscle, which is just phenomenal. And then even when we talk high intensity training, which is going to be limited in the geriatric folks, but BFR produces superior hypertrophy changes to high intensity training, which we kind of know that from, the young folks, but it's really great to see because, that'll go into a little bit of what we talk about today with, the atrophy and what drives potentially one of the theories that what drives atrophy within the geriatrics. But either way, then this weekend headed to Ohio to a hospital system up there for an open course. And then, the next weekend I'm headed up to New York City. So should be pretty good.
Nice. Hitting a lot of the hospital systems. And so that I love seeing this move into the geriatric population. And I guess piggybacking on our last podcast with Kevin Tipton, we had 2 cool things come out. We had the BFR systematic review and meta-analysis showing these monster effect sizes with BFR walking and strengthening and even superior hypertrophy compared to high load, which is great for that population. And then a paper in JBJS that if you supplement with protein, basically after joint replacement, then they saw superior results in sparing of muscle after these total joints. And so it was funny because a buddy of mine said he talked to his doctor about protein and after a surgery that his mom had just had. And the doc told him, I don't really think that's going to change anything. And then the day after that JBJS paper came out. So I sent it his way and like, maybe he'll listen to JBJS if he doesn't listen to you, man. So that's good stuff. Weatherford.
Yeah, that was pretty. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's what Ben and I were just talking about the other day. I mean, the atrophy, the amount of atrophy we saw on the surgical side in the group that was taking the supplemental protein was the same as what we saw on the control side that did not have, or in the control group that did not have surgery on that side. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's so simple and so ignored. So hope people listen to that last podcast. It's great. And Kevin Tipton's one of the leaders in the world on this stuff. All right, Ben, what's up with you, man?
Well, I recently was in Chicago, did a course up there with Illinois Bone and Joint Institute, and then went up to Kenosha, Wisconsin the weekend after that. So I could have just stayed for the week and driven an hour and a half, but I flew all the way back here and then flew back up. So, and then, coming up this next weekend, not the weekend before Halloween, but the weekend after that, I'll be in Stuart, Florida. And then I'll be over in St. Louis at Wash U the weekend after that. So pretty cool going over to Wash U. Excited about that. That's where both my parents went to college. So fun to go over there and do a course.
Yeah, at Wash U, they're part of our femur fracture trial. So one of the 9 centers, part of the Major Extremity Trauma Research Consortium BFR study that we have going. Wash U is one of those sites. So they're actually doing research with us. And when I have close ties and warm fuzzies for Wash U because Dr. Matt Matava, when he was the Rams doc, was the guy who said, "Hey, will you come bring your BFR talks into the NFL Combine?" years ago. And so, Matt Matava, a lot of thanks because at post Combine, man, that was my phone just blew up. So, anyways, awesome stuff, man. All right. Well, sounds like no one's going to get a break. We're going to keep pounding it. I think I win for having to go to freaking South Korea for a few days. My wife's not happy. I'm still supposed to schedule the United Kingdom and Jordan this year, which I don't think it's going to happen. So anyways.
Yeah, you're running a time crunch there on that one.
I know. We need more days in the month. So, Okay, let's get into this topic here. Vascular endothelial growth factor and HIF-1A. So let's kind of break this down. The body has areas that are normoxic, and they have areas that become more hypoxic. And so if you look at arterial blood, it's about 14% oxygen, physiologic oxygen, PO2. Myocardium is around 10%, and then most tissues of the body kind of hover around 5%. But then you go into cartilage and bone, and it's around 1%. O2. So it's a very hypoxic state. And so there's things you can maybe coat out of bone. So some of these cellular niches, like the mesenchymal stem cells or progenitor cells, they like that hypoxic area. But if we make the soft tissue hypoxic, then there's like this drift or bloom where they can kind of get coaxed out. And so there's other things in the body that if you bring on hypoxia, then you coax out these pathways to kick in. And so it's kind of interesting because when we're developing, we're in a very hypoxic state. When we're embryos in the womb, that hypoxia drives a lot of the growth of the vascular trees and capillary beds and neural growth. And so that's one reason preemies might have a hard time. They leave a hypoxia state and go into a normoxic state. And so I just want to hit this mechanistically. If you have an area that becomes a bit hypoxic. And so let's say we start to put on new muscle. So let's go back to this, the geriatric stuff here. If these people start to add some more muscle, they have more tissue that is becoming a bit hypoxic because it doesn't have the supporting vascularity and the nervous structure to feed that new tissue. So whenever something goes a little bit hypoxic, this thing called hypoxia-inducible factor, which is, for one thing, it's the master regulator of angiogenesis, HIF will start to come out. And its first goal is to say, okay, acutely, we're low oxygen in this area. I'm coming out. How do I increase oxygen? So one of the first things that HIF does is it kicks in the NO cascade. And when the NO cascade, nitric oxide comes in, then you get this relaxing of the smooth muscle, and more oxygen will automatically start to drift out. And then it shifts things into more of a glycolytic metabolism. But long term, what it really wants to do and what it does is vascular endothelial growth factor also comes out, and that promotes angiogenesis. And so there's times as you are adding muscle, if you're lifting heavy, the squeeze of the muscle contractions alone creates a hypoxic state because the muscle contraction is strong enough that it basically squeezes off the vessels. The soft tissue gets a little bit more hypoxic. So as you're adding more muscle, that hypoxia kicks in HIF-1A and vascular endothelial growth factor. So that's kind of it from the angiogenic side. And so I guess the easy takeaway here is we can make a limb hypoxic very, very easily with blood flow restrictions. We go in, we know how much pressure to put on there, and we give full hypoxia. We back it down a bit, and that hypoxia alone is what stimulates HIF-1A and what also kicks out VEGF. And we've seen that. The BFR studies that have measured VEGF have shown that it's significantly upregulated after you do BFR. Steve Patterson's group showed that there's increased capillarity in the calf muscles in older people just by doing some BFR calf presses. Julie Hunt's group showed increased capillarity, 14% or so after doing BFR for several weeks in individuals as well. That's my kind of 10,000-foot view of this hypoxia and the way we make HIF-1A and VEGF come out. You guys kind of give me your thoughts, and let's move in a little bit to what about the neuroprotection that we can see from this?
Yeah, so that's the big thing, I think, from the muscle standpoint, and kind of just a little bit of continuation with that. One of the things that with the geriatric population, why we really think that we see BFR is so effective at increasing muscle size and whatnot, is the amount of atrophy that comes out of the geriatrics is typically in type 2 fibers, and then if you look at type 1 fibers across young and old, there's typically not a whole lot of atrophy that goes on, or the difference really isn't that significant. The other thing that we see with geriatrics is the change in capillary density, and that change in capillary density or capillary contacts with muscle fiber is significant in type 2 fibers. And so what we think happens is basically if we can create that hypoxic state, we can increase capillary density to those type 2 fibers. That ultimately then will lead to an increase in satellite cell activation, because the other thing that we see with the satellite cell content that becomes activated versus just stays in their dormant state, those that become activated are a lot closer to capillary bed. So if we can increase capillary density, we should be able to further increase satellite cell activation, which then leads to a greater basal protein synthesis, ultimately helps to hypertrophy that muscle. I think so from the muscle standpoint, I think that's the big mechanism that we see. And
I think it gets confusing, when people say in satellite cells and all this stuff. So basically, it's not the right way to say it, but we can say the muscle stem cells like to live near the capillary beds. So if you're adding capillary beds, then as the density increases, we are probably increasing density of muscle stem cells. And the muscle stem cells are the regulators of muscle repair, regeneration, and long-term growth. So adding capillary beds good. And I think that's what's almost bigger at times. And people, I don't think about this enough. If we add capillary beds and increased angiogenesis along with muscle, that's the angiogenesis and capillary beds might be the really important driver for a lot of our health issues that we're looking at. So increased
absolutely
content, right? Yeah. Decreased fluid flow dynamics, because now if you have more area for the fluid to move throughout the limb, these pre-hypertensive states that you see later in life are reduced. And then, on top of that, then as you're creating more muscle, obviously you have something to soak up more glucose for our diabetics and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're also thinking about muscle endurance being a big issue as we get older, those increased capillary beds, of course, are going to have increased oxygen transport to the muscle and allow for more perfusion of the muscle, keep those type 1s, fed a little longer.
Right. And that's what's crazy. If now as clinicians, we can say, okay, I'm also doing this treatment to increase your capillary density. You can be like, holy hell, how are you going to do that? What drug? It's like, well, it's not a drug, it's a pathway. And if I can put your limb in a hypoxic state, then I kick in HIF1A, I kick in VEGF, and angiogenesis happens. It's beautifully basic, find the pressure. Mm-hmm. It probably needs to be a decent amount of hypoxia to make it happen. But that's the direction I would love to see us looking at, not with just with BFR, but as rehab professionals, is we're doing these treatments to actually target some of these pathways.
Yeah, that's the key. Is the tissue has to be in a hypoxic state, because what we see is, you talked initially there in the intro about, just doing, let's just say squats, for example, at a high intensity. Yeah, we create a hypoxic state within the muscle, but what we see from that is that HIF1A, or hypoxic inducing factor 1A, that typically is degraded under normoxic conditions within about 5 minutes. And then we have, there's a few different studies that have looked at BFR or the ischemic preconditioning where we create a real hypoxic state. One of the studies from Larkin's group showed that, BFR or VEGF upregulated out to 24 hours. And at 4 hours post, it was upregulated fourfold. So we have a pretty substantial impact on this. And it's something that we can easily do. We can safely do it.
Yeah. And so it's interesting too. There's the reverse. So if you're in chronic hypoxia, then bad things can happen. And so there's conditions where, a diabetic who is in these low oxygen states, diabetic retinopathies, they have too much VEGF on board, and there's too much angiogenesis in their eyes, and then they develop they develop blindness. Same thing with these macular degeneration. So those people have way too much hypoxia chronically, which is bad. And then the other is, if you look at something like tumor growth. So a cancer cell grows rapidly, which means that it has to feed nutrients to its growth. So it starts to do whatever it can to drive angiogenesis, and increasing VEGF in those type of situations, or HIF1A, can make those things worse. And so both those groups are on our contra list, because we just don't know right now. We have the diabetic study hopefully starting over in Germany, so we can get a little better insight. into what happens with them. But chronic hypoxia, bad. Acute short bouts of hypoxia, which is kind of naturally seen by the body, is good. So then let's shift this way. So it's pretty straightforward. We can get an angiogenic response if we can get an acute bout of hypoxia. HIF-1A comes out, VEGF comes out, capillary beds grow. Zach, you take this away, Rain Man. On so what's the neuroprotective side, and how does this affect nerves?
Yeah, so we look at it from two different ways: an indirect mechanism and then a direct mechanism. The direct mechanism is literally when we can upregulate VEGF. VEGF has neuroprotective effects that we literally can limit cell death. And then the other thing is we can stimulate neurogenesis, so we can stimulate nerve growth simply from having VEGF present. So not only is VEGF an angiogenic growth factor, but it also has neurogenic growth factor abilities as well. The indirect effects, we're looking from a neural standpoint, we're looking at the stimulation of angiogenesis. We can increase glucose uptake. So if we have, let's just say, a hypoxic situation such as maybe stroke or brain injury, something like that, we can actually increase through increasing the permeability of the vascular tissue. We can extract greater amounts of glucose across that membrane. And then we have antioxidant effects as well as an indirect mechanism.
Okay, yeah, and so that's interesting. And so, I mean, something that's fascinating too is the talk that even TIAs, transient ischemic attacks, are the body's own protective mechanism to avoid a full-on stroke. And so that's a quick hypoxic event as your body is trying to say, uh-oh, something bad's happening. Let's do this preconditioning bout. And so that's the two kind of clinical things to think about here. The little amounts of stress, or hormesis, which hormesis is a small amount of stress that makes the cells and things tougher, are good. And so if you look at hypoxia is a small amount of stress that buffers the body for things that might happen, then you've got preconditioning. And so clinicians, the only way that we can probably control from an injury state preconditioning is pre-surgical type stuff. Someone's getting ready to go in for surgery. Let's do some preconditioning. It might be right before surgery, like we've seen with the pain response. People who do just tourniquets for multiple bouts right before surgery have less narcotic use after gallbladder surgery, have less pain after total joint surgery. Or it could be weeks of preconditioning where they come in, do some prehab, and they're getting these hypoxic events, not only getting the limb stronger, but there might be some preconditioning that we're doing. And then there's post-conditioning, and that is giving it stress after the events. And there's interesting, all sorts of that out there, that there's post-conditioning effects that we can get from things. And so from the neural side, we're probably as clinicians going to see more of post-conditioning applied, where someone's had this injury, they come in, you're doing BFR or some sort of ischemic preconditioning to cause this hypoxia and hopefully get in neuroregeneration. So what do you think, Zach, from a preconditioning to post-conditioning kind of thought process?
Yeah, so we're limited with preconditioning studies, and I think the translation to a human model is limited from a preconditioning. The only way that I think we really see a true effect with preconditioning potentially would be in say a high risk population of maybe athletes. So if we take the concussion model and we take this traumatic brain injury from that standpoint, and if we precondition them prior to the game, do we see a change? That we don't know. But I think when it comes to decreasing the severity of a stroke, we are limited from a preconditioning side simply because we can't predict when someone's going to have a stroke. But we do know from the animal models that if we do precondition, we significantly decrease the area of cell death. And then this area of what's called the penumbra, which is this area that is still viable and still alive, but it's just metabolically inactive. And that is, it's significantly smaller as well. So we have a big win there. The avenue, and so some people would say, well, how do we precondition the brain, right? Because you can't go in there and just plant one of the cerebral arteries. What we look at from a remote standpoint, and basically can we do conditioning in the arms or in the legs and to produce this response? And I think we can.
Yeah, looks like it.
The mechanism, Yeah, the mechanism is what's called a humoral mechanism, and literally what that means is we produce these anxious factors remote in the blood throughout the body, and we've seen preceding a total knee surgery where we occlude in the leg, we have increased cerebral oxygenation out to 24 hours, I believe the study showed. So that's a good positive thing, and that was done in the leg. And then from a post-conditioning standpoint, we're seeing emerging data that if we do post-conditioning, we can have a pretty significant impact even, after the stroke and after the damage has been done.
Yeah. So we lost you a little bit there, Zach. You broke up, but I think we got the gist of it. And so totally agree. I mean, in that animal model, post-conditioning, there was hematoma resolution, right? For the stroke.
And that was huge. That was huge. So it was a subdural hematoma. And the cool thing that they really did with that study was they literally created the insult in a naive rat. And then they sewed the two hind legs of the rat together, and they conditioned one rat. And then we see this advantageous effect in a rat that was not conditioned. So that really establishes the point that it's these humoral factors that are produced and then just travel in the blood. We've seen that as well with rabbits. They've done a complete blood transfusion, and then they create the insult. I believe it was a heart attack or an MI in a rabbit that was not conditioned. But once that blood is transfused, it creates a protective effect. So pretty fascinating. I do believe, though, that we can have a remote effect, and it can be pretty powerful.
Yeah, remote's awesome. And that study with the rats, those pictures are bananas of they made them the little Siamese twins rats, suturing them together.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
it's crazy, but yeah, remote is obviously the way we want to go. And again, remote just means we cause hypoxia usually in a limb to help an organ distant from it. Because some of these early ischemic preconditioning animal trials, they would clamp off blood flow to the brain and then cut the animal's head off. and the ones that had the ischemic preconditioning prior, their heart would keep pumping for longer, and their organs would live longer. Versus the rats that did it, or the animals that didn't, they would just die right away. So we won't do those in human models, obviously, but I put in a tourniquet or something to cause hypoxia on a limb in someone remotely is very, very easy. And even WashU, they just had the stroke trial looking at it. If they did it in the upper extremity, could they change balance scores? So let's wrap this up here. I think the one thing that's a clinical kind of takeaway is when you're doing BFR on your patient, this isn't just the get yoked, hey, I'm getting my patient pumped up response. When you are putting them into this hypoxic state, and again, that's why we think it's very important that people are knowing what pressures are causing hypoxia, and we're standardizing this across the boards. Because, again, our goal is to get very sciencey in the clinics. And, hey, I'm going to do, I got to get you to 80% or 60% limb occlusion pressure, because we've seen now in these trials that's the kind of threshold to make HIF-1A kick in and VEGF subsequently kick in. But when your patients are getting into that hypoxic state, you're creating capillary beds and angiogenesis. And then there's also potentially a neuroprotective effect, which could be huge, and also regeneration of nervous tissue. Does that all sound like I'm not talking a bunch of BS? Sometimes I do.
That sounds good, Johnny. I think the question I would have, just from an application perspective, might be, in this situation, if we are trying to manipulate this hypoxic state, do we tend to maybe bias towards lower extremity exercise, more hypoxia that we would get obviously with an 80% restriction than say in an upper extremity where we go 40 to 50? Is that more powerful, and how do we use that in the clinic to kind of achieve the goals that we are wanting to achieve? whether it be bone health, whether it be neuroprotection, hypertrophy, et cetera.
Yeah, it's very hard to study too, because I mean, we even see it from the stem cell work we're doing. You get these like multiple windows that happen. So immediately after, you might get a spike, but 5 hours later or 24 hours later, there might be even a bigger spike. And so then it's like, how many blood draws do we have to do to test where these spikes are happening to know exactly where it is? But the positive thing is those basic science trials. We typically need a very small N. So it's not like our big randomized controlled trials. We can test this in smaller numbers, so it doesn't get so pricey.
Well, and I think piggybacking off what you were talking about, Kyle, I just came across an article yesterday that was talking about exercise in and of itself being a form of preconditioning.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes to the hormetic response that Johnny was talking about, creating enough of a stress where it puts the body in this, again, like you've said, Kyle, a survival type mechanism. Say, okay, we just went through this thing. It was really rough. We've got to be prepared for the next time that it happens. And so maybe,
Right.
What is the required pressure? How much hypoxia do we really need? And what exercise components really get us to this point of we need to kick in survival mechanism and respond and adapt for the next time that this stress happens.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ben. I think like when Zach, and I forgot we did give Zach a nickname, by the way. It's Penumbra.
Yeah, I knew he would try
earlier.
He was going to work that in.
He was going to work it in, yeah.
Two things I knew he would do is use the word penumbra, and he would talk about the little Siamese animals. Those are like, I think
he was going to slip. He thought he was going to slip that by us, but it didn't work. But that was the thought I had too, Ben. You getting in the car, Zach? What on earth, man?
How it's going to work, man. Hey, I'm waiting on the full endorsement of VEGF. VEGF is key.
Hey, I've been on board with that for a while, Ben. But Ben, I like your point, and I had that thought too when Zach was talking about the neuroprotective effect. It just seems like a really kind of strong support for routine exercise, just overall all health and exercise being such a key, not necessarily just BFR exercise, but exercise in general. So I think, that's kind of what we're seeing there for sure.
Yeah. And it looks like, there's a lot of opportunities for preconditioning. If there's some stuff, available, if we could obviously predict that would be awesome. If we could say something's going to happen, so we're going to precondition for it. But it looks like, the post conditioning, which Johnny, mentioned, that's probably our main target. That looks really powerful, both locally and systemically potentially.
All right. So let's wrap this up and put a bow on it. Short bouts of hypoxia are probably beneficial in most populations. And so there's some groups that obviously probably have too much of these factors running around. And we don't know yet, the diabetics and the cancer patients for one. But by us being able to do these short bouts of hypoxia, where we're really able to maybe tap into some powerful things as clinicians. I mean, people are even like, well, I don't want to cause a little hypoxia because it's going to make the wound not heal. Well, no, a short bout of hypoxia is probably increasing capillarity and increasing angiogenesis, which is what the wound needs. And so that alone is a whole fascinating topic. And I think we can all agree HIF-1A and VEGF are, as Zach's been pounding the table, very powerful. And we're hoping to get a lot more studies trying to understand that to bring this more into our clinical pathways. So hypoxia good for short bouts, hypoxia chronically not good. We're going to have to dial in and know what our target hypoxia is, I think, to get a true effect. Everyone agree?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to move into my interview today with my buddy, Drew Air Jordan's Morcos. And so he's out in LA in Kyle's area, and he has a really cool clinic out there and sees all these high-end athletes and movie stars and rock stars. But also he and I are part of it. He's really the big driver and the main part of it, of partnering with Air Jordan's new facility in LA, which looks like an amazing place in downtown LA. So we're going to talk about the new Air Jordan partnership and what Drew does to make Drew kind of special out there. So talk to you guys in just a bit when we're done with this and go over our podcast questions. And welcome to our Interviewing the Expert. I've got my man, Drew Morcos, coming all the way to us from the beautiful West Coast. And so Drew and I have been friends for a while here, and he's a physical therapist out in the Newport Beach area, and he's doing some amazing stuff at Modus, which is his physical therapy clinic out there. And so let me just get into your bio, Drew. This is gonna take like 30 minutes because this guy's freaking bio. You can see how much how much stuff he has on here, dude. So for one thing, can you get more alphabet soup behind your name? Drew Marcos, PT, DPT, OCS, SCS, DNSP, ATC, CSCS, FAO, and PT, is the president and CEO of Modus Specialist Physical Therapy, which is in Newport Beach. He takes care of all sorts of high-profile people, professional clients from sports and rock stars and movie stars, et cetera, and also probably just the working class stiff. But some of the people he works with, Russell Wilson, I know they're tied, Antonio Brown, Carmelo Anthony, Steve Johnson from golf. So he's got these guys that seems like always are hanging out at his clinic. He used to be the director of rehab at USC for their athletic medicine department, which I just want to point out, my Longhorns whooped that ass this year in football. And he continues to be an adjunct, and I know he still does a whole lot out there with the biokinese department and the PT department, and teaches and does all sorts of stuff to help them. He got his BS in kinesiology with an emphasis on ATC at UNLV, his DPT from USC back in '07, and then he went on and did his orthopedics and fellowship in sports PT through the Kaiser Permanente program in LA. He's an athletic trainer and physical therapist with D1 Athletics throughout the NFL, U.S. Pro Beach Volleyball, World's Strongest Man. He also publishes articles regularly in GSPT, likes to throw out all his media, New York Post, ESPN, et cetera, and speaks nationally. I don't know, probably internationally too, but we always get to catch up at things like CSM, et cetera. And so Drew is also one of the pretty good guys on social media. So his Instagram is the best place to get out all sorts of cool content. It's at Modus, MOTUS Specialist, MOTUSSPECILISTS. And then just go to www.modusspecialist.com to check out his facilities. He's got a great website with some cool stuff there. So Drew, my man, he's going to try
Thanks for that intro
today, man. It's not going to happen. So
hey, man, I need to add one more credential after that. It's the BFRC.
BFRC, yeah, okay. I can't believe you don't have that up there already.
When are we gonna do something where it's becomes official, a certified?
Well, so I talked to Justin Moore at APTA about that, and he said, until it's an accredited thing directly through APTA, that they don't recognize the extra kind of initials there. But he said it's totally fair if people want to go ahead and add that, since they have to do advanced training since it's not taught in school. And so I know we get people ask us all the time, can I put BFRC behind my name? So go for it, man. It's totally fair. You need more letters.
More alphabets.
Make that bio longer. So we met through my friend and your good friend, Stefania Bell, years ago. And so one thing that struck me when we first met, when you come walking up, only you could pull this off, LA, is wearing your suit with a pair of Jordans, right?
That's right.
Those are
That's right. I'm a Jordan guy. I've always worn Jordans and wear them everywhere. I got married in Jordans. My wife approved it. I did, yeah. Dude. And that was my gift to my groomsmen, was a pair of Jordans that they wore at the wedding.
Any specific Jordans that are memorable to you? Like these are the Jordans you got to have.
Yeah, the Jordan 11 patent leathers. Those are the ones. Those are the ones I wore in my wedding. The all black ones. The Gamma Blues is what they're called. And then kind of to stick with the color theme, my groomsmen got the Altitude 13s, and so they're black with a little green on the bottom. So it was great. We all looked fresh at my wedding.
I have no idea what you were talking about, man. Like, if I wore that, just Jordans alone, my wife and kids would give me so much crap for weeks, man. So,
well, hey, man, vice versa. If I wore cowboy boots, I would be in trouble.
I would wear cowboy boots, man. I would give grief for even wearing that. So, but that's a cool segue, because that ties into this new partnership with the Jordan facility down there in LA. What's the exact name of it?
It's the Jordan Flight Lab.
Jordan. Okay.
in downtown LA. So Jordan, the Jordan brand itself used to have a Studio 23 down in New York, and when Carmelo Anthony was there, that was kind of his hub of playing basketball and them doing, just workout trainings and all of that. And so that one, since when he left New York, it kind of started falling through. Not too many people were using it as much, and so they wanted to find a new hub for Jordan brand athletes to go to when they're in town here in LA. Because a lot of them either vacation here or have homes here, and so they wanted to have a place where they could all come to train, to play basketball, and have like a home site, if you will. So they designed this place down in downtown LA on Broadway, next to Staples Center, specifically one is for Jordan brand athletes, the pro guys, but then also there's about 5 high schools in LA that are sponsored by Jordan. So all of those teams can come out and train. And the way they designed the facility is pretty remarkable. The first floor, it's a 3-level building, and the first floor is all retail, where it's all Jordan attire, shoes, all of that stuff. And then the second floor is the performance lab. So that's what I was involved in helping create and bring in partners. So we put in force plates, we put in a whole biomechanics system, motion analysis system. We have dumbbells, we have all the recovery stuff. That's where your involvement came in terms of BFR. And we have weights, we have all this new technology in terms of what we could use over there. One of them is the K-Zine vector system, which is like a vector system that is pulleys system, but you can be very creative in how you want to use that. So we have all that stuff there, and then they have locker rooms on that second floor. They have a customization area where like you pick a shirt and then you can customize it with any kind of design you want on there. And then the third floor is actually a full court NBA size basketball court, and the flooring is pretty unique that they used a glass floor from Germany. So it's the first glass court in the United States, and they were able to raise it a little bit. So on the bottom of it is LED lights, so you can play at night, and the lines of the court light up, so you can play at any time of the day, and It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. And so the sports science lab, is it more of the, it sounds like the NBA experience? We have BFR like pretty much in every NBA team now, and all this other technology that you're talking about. So is it, hey, this is the sports science NBA experience, come in, just kind of check it out and leave? Or is it like, we're going to test kids and train people and potentially even like rehab people there?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a testing site. So, one of the big things is combine training, if you will. So we have NBA or NFL will be doing testing there and training there. So they can do all of their workouts. We can get data on them. We can look at biomechanics. We can do strength training with BFR safely, and then the whole recovery side. And then, it's pretty much like a one-stop shop for these athletes that Jordan wants to bring in and have affiliated with their brand and with the facility.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So how much time are you going to be spending there, you think?
It literally just opened on 10-20. 10-20, yeah, was the official opening. 10-18 was a soft opening. So it's essentially all Jordan brand. So it's a matter of like when people are coming in that I'll be probably called in, kind of work with guys. But right now it's a facility that's just has all the equipment there, and then as needed, when different events come through or people are flying in, that will all the sports science team will come in and start working on some of the stuff.
And Interscope Records is part of it too, right? They have a
so Jordan's always had this partnership with Interscope Records, and that's where they're able to bring in different artists and things like that, because the site is not just a sports site. I mean, on 10-18 there was a huge like DJ party and
Yeah, I saw that.
music all around. Yeah, so they
Were you dorking out in your Jordans, man?
I was acting cool, I was trying to be like Johnny Owen, Mr. Cool Guy.
Yeah, right. It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
No. So they have an affiliation. I mean, they're really trying to co-brand and co-market as much as they can with different people, different places, and so I think they're kind of leaving that door open for a lot of different partners in that sense.
Cool. Yeah, man. So LA, but actually super cool that you can get your swag downstairs, and then you got this like state of the art sports science, and then even go upstairs and you've got like just the coolest freaking basketball court in the world. So
yeah, they want to really make it like a full experience. So like, if you want to get your first pair of Jordans when you come into town, you come in, try them on. They have
it would be my first pair. That would be awesome, man.
They have like trial pairs that people wear. Then you go upstairs, you work out in it. To the second floor, you do some Vertimax testing, you do some biomechanics testing, and then like, this feels really good. Let me go shoot around a little bit. Then you go to the third floor, you shoot around with it because you're buying it to play basketball, and then you got the full experience there because you'll either work out with it, you'll play basketball in it, and then you go ahead and make that purchase.
Nice. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so it's fully open to the public now?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now it's fully open. The first floor is.
Yeah.
So the second floor and third floor are that's kind of a little bit more monitored.
Yeah.
But definitely the retail store is available.
All right.
Yeah.
Super cool, man. So I'm psyched to be able to partner with you guys and with Jordan on this. And so it sucks I missed the grand opening, the whole red carpet thing or whatever. I don't.
Yeah. Priorities, man.
I know. So, anyways, next time I'm there, let's go. I want to go see it all. So, definitely we'll be there soon and check it out. So, okay, cool. So Drew, with his million things going on, that's sweet. So that's this new direction. So, let's go back. So, take me in the way back machine here. A young Drew wearing Air Jordan number 3s or whatever, going to USC. So you graduated USC and then just started up there in the athletic department or the clinic?
No, so I graduated USC in 2007, and I knew that I needed to learn more, and I knew I needed to get better. So I did an orthopedic residency with Kaiser Permanente, and I knew I wanted to do sports, and so. A lot of people say they want to do sports, but it's hard to really do sports fully. But that's something I kind of really had a passion for because I knew growing up that I wasn't going to make it to the NBA. So I thought, well, what's the closest thing? Let me be the guy that's on the court when they get hurt, and so I'll be the next one up, if you will. So I knew I wanted to do sports. So then after I did my orthopedic residency, I did a sports fellowship with Kaiser Permanente the second year after graduating. So it took me a lot of time and education from there. Actually, after that, after my sports fellowship, again, I knew I needed to kind of hone in on a lot more movement because sports is all about movement. And so I took a movement links course with Claire Frank back in 2010. And then the job opened up at USC Athletics at the summertime of 2010. So I was with Kaiser up until then, and then decided to make the jump over to athletics and became the director of rehab for all of the sports teams, the 21 Division I sports for USC.
Yeah, it's a massive program there. So
yeah, very big. Yeah, so I was there for 5 years. It was great. Learned a lot. Russ Romano, who's the head athletic trainer, great guy, and we kind of connected right away and worked very well together. Nice. As well as the whole athletic training staff. And then, just from there, I kind of knew I wanted to grow a little bit more, do a little bit more things on my own, and kind of start seeing more professional athletes on the traveling circuit as well. So after 5 years at USC, I left, and it was a big move for me, and started Modus Specialist Physical Therapy.
Nice. Yep. Was that nerve-wracking, man? Leaving a big giant institute.
Yeah, man, it was huge. And I had, I'm married. I just had my couple years, I had my second child, so it was like, are we gonna really do this right now? And it all worked out. Thank God, everything was great, and
Yeah.
it was a hard transition that first year, but it's been awesome ever since.
Yeah, man, you're blowing up. So it's the best thing I think you probably could have done for your career. But dude, I'm with you. When I told my wife, hey, I'm going to probably leave the government, this cush, can never get fired job. Are you cool if we sell the house and move into an
Yeah, right.
apartment? Yeah, which we did. She's just like, wait, what are you talking about, man? So
That's hilarious. It's
yeah,
it's a big move, man. I mean, I think a lot of the young PTs they talk to me and say, I want to start my own business, and I'm like, you know what, like no one teaches you all these things in PT school about running a business. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's different in chiropractic school because they have to kind of live on their own kind of a thing. There's no referrals from doctors to chiropractors, so it's much harder for them.
yeah,
But as a PT, I mean, no one teaches you anything about business.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like make sure you can really handle this and you're able to give up a lot because it's not easy.
yeah,
And,
yeah. And so many people want to do it like right off the bat,
yeah,
Like
right.
I want to start my own cash practice or whatever. It's like, man, I mean, kind of the way you and I both did it, it's long, years of working it and fellowships and stuff like that. And
Right.
I think also once you get that Rolodex kind of deep of,
Mhm.
I know all these people that I can call on and they can help me out and, send people my way and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's all about relationships at the end of the day. I mean,
It is.
like what can only take you so far in the sense that, there's a lot of good physical therapists out there, but can you relate to people and you have good rapport with people, and I think that's what really makes the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So once you started Modus, how did you kind of get Modus into being Modus, like these high-end clients and stuff? Did you already have those connections from USC? And I mean, it's kind of like with me, once I started working with a few teams, then a few more teams started calling, and then it just snowballed. Is that kind of what happened? You had kind of a marquee person?
Yeah, so my first marquee person was Russell Wilson from Seattle Seahawks.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, just another guy, quarterback.
Yeah.
But I was introduced to him by a good friend, Ryan Flaherty, who's a strength coach, personal trainer kind of a guy, and it's interesting. I was at USC, and his girlfriend was a track athlete, and so we kind of connected because she had an injury, and she's like, your methods and style would work great with how my boyfriend thinks, and so we kind of connected, and then it kind of just grew from there, and so I started working with Russell just one or two times in LA, just because he was in town, and he kept calling me back and wanted me to come see him, and then it kind of just grew from there, and I was with him for about 2 years, flying up to Seattle a couple days a week when I was starting my own business at Modus. And so it kind of just grew from there. And then, his wife is Sierra, and her best friend is Lala Anthony, Carmelo Anthony's wife. And so Russ had a pretty major knee injury about 2 years ago. So we were able to get him back, and it was funny because ESPN, did this whole thing, like, is he going to miss a game and all this stuff? And then it all came out where there was a physical therapist living in his house, all this stuff, waking him up in the middle of the night and all that. I don't know where all that stuff came from. But
Does Stefania write that up?
No, a local ESPN rep down in Seattle. He called me, like, asking, like, what are we doing to get him ready? Is he going to miss a game? And Russ actually didn't miss one game that whole season. He had two big injuries. So word got out, and he's like, what did Russ do? What did Russell do to kind of help him get better, not miss a game? And so the wives were talking, and I got a call from Mello, and we've been working together since New York about three years ago now. So it's been fun.
Yeah, you guys seem pretty close, man.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. I mean, one of the better guys out there, and it's just all kind of started developing from there. And other guys started popping up, wanting to get work because they all end up knowing each other. These pro guys don't look on Instagram or my website for anything. It's like who's a guy that other guys trust and that do a good job, and I've been very blessed to been working with a bunch of guys traveling to AB, Antonio Brown with the Steelers, and all these guys all over the place. It's been fun.
Well, and then you look all hip and cool, rolling in your suit and your Jordans, and so they're like, "This guy, man, he knows what it's about."
The shoes make a big difference, man. They know your swag just by your shoes.
All right. It's crazy too. Like that the whole media when you're there, and somehow local media jumps on it. Because that's what happened when I was with the Steelers. We left, and ESPN Pittsburgh somehow reached out. We found out there was some social that one of the players was putting out there, and he's like, "Hey, you got to comment on this guy's injury." And I'm like, "Whoa, how the hell did you get my number?" Like I'm going to comment on anybody's injuries, man. It's crazy. Right. And so
it's crazy how it all comes together.
Here's a weird question, but I think I reached out to you because athletes will call us, especially in the early days when we were just getting BFR going, and like, "Hey man, you worked with my team. Now my boy up at this team, he's injured, and they're not doing your BFR stuff there. Is there someone around in that area?" And it was up in a northern area, not a huge city. And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got this guy, man. He just got trained and does all this stuff." So the athlete calls his secretary. And he's like, "Hey, will you come see, can I come see you or whatever?" And he calls me freaking out. He's like, "What do I charge a pro athlete, man?" I'm like, "I don't know. I charge the team." And so I called you and I'm like, what's your rate, man? How do you figure out what to charge these guys? So is that a hard subject? Or are you just like,
it is. I mean, at the beginning, it really was. I mean, that was one of the biggest struggles was really figuring out, especially when I was starting Modus, because I wanted to build a brand and, having the clients as marketing tools, if you will, and branding tools was a big thing for me. So, it was more than just about money. It was really about, doing a good job and building that relationship because in my mind, I knew that if I did a good job, it would lead to some other, stuff. And so, that was really hard. And because, I wanted to make it in that world. And, but now like, 3 years in, like there's set prices. I put my feet down. If they don't want to do it, then it is what it is. I'm good just, being in the clinic and running my own thing here in Newport Beach. So it's not one of those things anymore where I'm, totally crunched on it. And I remember that phone call you gave me. I'm like, man, that's the toughest question,
Well, you're in LA and he's in this other, like not LA city. I'm like,
right. Right.
Rates might be just different in general. So yeah, it was funny. Yeah. So, and I'm with you, man. Like I did a bunch of pro bono right off in the early days and just told the teams like, "Hey, if you like this and like what I did, would you mind just telling another team about it?" And, there's this whole give and take that people have to understand with business too. It's, you can't just be, I'm Louis Vuitton and this is the price and it never changes.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of where you have to compromise at some extent. You have to know some athletes are, financially, they're not as well off as some other guys. And, now it's to the point where some of these, celebrities that I see and pro athletes that I see, it's like money's never even brought up. It's just something I just bill to their
agent or whatever.
Financial guy. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's always a sticky subject with anybody. And so if I can avoid it as much as possible, then it's great.
Yeah. So do you take insurance too, or are you all cash?
So I take insurance for professional athletes only.
Yeah.
So either NFL, MLB, NBA, when I see them in my office, but when I travel, it's a cash-based thing.
Yeah.
Just because, there's the insurance, there's no way they could cover everything on when I travel, but in the office, so if we get now that MLB season's coming to an end, just the two teams that are left, a lot of people are coming in now, and so that's all insurance based, and NFL off season and when people get hurt, we do the workers' comp thing. So we're right next to where the Chargers facility is. So we see a lot of the Chargers as well. So, yeah, it works out for them because, at the end of the day, the pro guys are the ones that are always questioning about money. So
Yeah, I know.
it's the weirdest thing, man. They, it's hard to judge, all that stuff, but, you tell them you take insurance and they're with you 5 days a week.
I know.
But if you tell them it's a cash price, they're, I'll just stay at home kind of.
Yeah, which is crazy, man.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Everyone thinks that, oh, you work with this team, you can bill them $1 million. Like, dude, you don't even know. I'm begging them to pay us half the time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, where's this bill at? I'm like following up with, insurance agents and all. I'm like, man, just.
I'm gonna have to send a collection letter to this freaking high-end athlete. So, how much are you traveling nowadays? Is it still a lot, or?
I've kind of cut it down a little bit more. I have 3 employees now at Modus. So, it's been great to have them on my team, and they're able to hold the fort when I am traveling. But, more when it's necessary, if you will. So like, I'll get some calls about traveling here and there, but if it's not following a specific injury, if you will, and it's just like, hey, can you come out? Usually those guys wouldn't want to pay what the rate is, so it makes it easier to just be like, does this work for you? If not, then we're good. Yeah. But if someone has like an injury or they have something going on that's more drastic, then yeah, we'll make it work where there's some things that we can figure out timing wise. I mean, there's just so much stuff happening here now in LA with, I guess, the Jordan brand was going on, and my facility with some of these guys that got injured during the season that take a little bit more precedent right now in terms of staying local. Yeah,
for sure. And so you're in Newport Beach, so you also take care of all the Real Housewives of Orange County, right? That's your main clientele.
I know that's what you want to see when you come over to down to Orange County. You're like, hey, make sure when I come, the Real Housewives come over.
Yeah, no, man, they're too blonde for me.
No, I mean it's great. The Orange County community is really, they're very fitness related. They're all either not just in terms of wanting to outwardly look great, but they really want to stay fit and stay active and be there for their kids and stuff. And so we kind of our niche over here at Modus is, we're more for that lifestyle of active people. So we don't necessarily, we always see that we could take them, but usually they're not the ones that are willing to pay cash in terms of someone who just is desk job and has an injury or neck pain or back pain. Usually that's not our clientele. It's usually that same person who has a desk job, but then also runs marathons on the weekends. Yeah. And so that's where we've kind of differentiated ourselves in the community as more of the higher level active, wanting to get back to karate or jiu-jitsu, whatever they want to do, and they have an injury that we can help.
That's the best patients too, right, man? You set up a niche. It's very, very good.
Yeah. It is. And I think that's kind of what has been my goal in being a cash-based practice. There's always the trouble with that. It's never super easy. I mean, if we took insurance, I mean, we would be, I would have to open up multiple sites because, we get calls all the time. People want to come in, but they only want to use insurance. So, we kind of have to let them know what we're about, what the difference you'll find with us versus other clinics. There's no aides or assistants with us, and you're one-on-one with the PT for the whole hour. So it's kind of a different thing that maybe they have to experience at the insurance level first and be like, I don't want to go to an aide for 45 minutes.
Waste your time, pay all those copays. It's sad.
Yeah. And that's essentially what we say. I mean, you pay your copays for 3 months and you pay us for a month, and we'll, save time. You probably end up saving money because at the end. Yeah, exactly. And I think people are beginning to realize that, because I think more people are going into the cash-based model. Yeah. It's still, I think within 5 years, like insurance, the reimbursement's just so bad right now, especially here in LA, that it's, people are realizing that it's it's not the way to go. Yeah, so I think that model in itself has always been what I really wanted to. I didn't want to lose track of that when I started my business, and it's hard. It's hard because there's only that. It's a certain niche as well of clients. You're not gonna get out of 100. It's probably 20%. So you have to be able to work with that 20%, and that 20% then refers another 20%.
Yeah, I was going to say that clientele is probably so much word of mouth. You get
Exactly.
a lot of that.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes you, like, if I'm going to go and say, whoa, Modus is different from a clinician's perspective? It sounds like, and it's a very USC type of thing, very biomechanically driven. You think that's kind of a big part of your will? I know you're a movement guy, but people throw that around. It's like, well, what does that mean? Are you an FMS guy? Are you?
Exactly right. Yeah, I think that's what I really, talking to Shirley Sarman and a lot of those people that have been around for a long time. One of the big things that I've always kind of noticed is, when someone asks, what's a physical therapist? When you ask around the public, they're like, oh, they're they do massage. Or, they do exercises, or they do
torture, whatever.
Torture. Yeah. They use a scraper and it really hurts. And that's what physical therapist is. And, I think one of the biggest things for me was what are, like, when you think of a dentist, they work with teeth. You think optometrists, they work with the eyes. But when you think of physical therapists, what are we? Like, what do we specialize in? And I think that's where I kind of gained a lot from Shirley was, we're movement specialists. Like, that's what we do. Like, we can watch someone walk and we can figure out what's wrong with them. We can see someone throw a ball and figure out what's wrong with them. So we're based on movement. And modus, that's where modus came from. Modus is Latin for movement. And so I really wanted movement in my name, in my business name. Mm-hmm. But obviously, like, movement's used all over the place. So, like, movement was taken, all these, common words of movement was taken when I was first starting it. And I really wanted a one name thing, like Pepsi, Coke, Nike,
mm-hmm. Branding.
I'm thinking, I'm thinking big. I'm thinking big scale, like, one of those companies.
Of course you are.
Yeah. So that's where Modus came from. And so, essentially we're based on movement. I mean, that's what really differentiates us. I was trained in dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, but that's just one of the things that I train in, but it's not all that I do. And so a lot of DNS is based off of primitive patterning and how babies move and how, that's all innate in the brain. So no one's teaching a baby how to turn or crawl. So we know that in a healthy baby, it's in the brain at some level. So it never went away. So when we train an adult or an athlete, we use those same movement patterns as a baby, and you kind of get great results in terms of, how they move, what muscles contract, where is the stabilizing segment versus the moving segment. So, when I have these like 300-pound NFL players doing these baby movements, they're struggling, after like 6 reps because they've been so used to training in a weight room where they're benching or curling or something in a static position that dynamically they've never really turned on multiple segments at one time.
Right.
So we really kind of, I have my staff trained in it, and that's how we practice. And we apply all methods. I mean, manual therapy, DNS stuff, developmental kinesiology. So it's all kind of intertwined rather than just being a one focused clinic and this is all we do and this is how we do it. USC is great. They're very heavy on manual therapy, but then when you look at Wash U, they're very heavy on movement therapy.
Yeah.
And watching the syndrome. So taking both of those worlds and combining them together as one has kind of really helped develop what Modus is kind of all about.
That's a beautiful way to do rehab and what we should all be doing. It's much more labor intensive and brain intensive, and it wears you down.
Right.
That was with us at the Center for the Intrepid. Having to break down what they call MOS, what every specific soldier has to do. Mm-hmm. Some guys, it's about working above their head all day on a plane. looking at that movement pattern and then
Right.
how are you failing at that, or I've got to move and rotate right all day because that's what I cover.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
I think that's one of the big things too, is like, being very, when I say movement, it's like where is the problem lying? So we get a lot of, quarterbacks, that's kind of been like a more specialty niche for me as well, is like being the quarterback whisperer, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these guys come in with, shoulder and elbow pain. And at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with their shoulder or elbow. When we really look at the whole movement system, the whole kinetic chain, they may be lacking, dorsiflexion on their left ankle.
Mm-hmm.
That's causing them to, significantly rotate less and use all arm in that throwing right shoulder. So, we look at the elbow, it's not just treating the side of the area like tendonitis or something like that. It's really looking at, okay, why. My big thing and what I, always teach the students and my staff is, we always have to ask ourselves why we have this pain. Why do they have this pain? Why are they coming in here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have patella tendonitis, but why? Like, you don't just wake up one morning and you have patella tendonitis. It's not a
right.
systemic thing. It's a biomechanical thing. Right. And so if we can really figure out why, then we'll do our job better, because anyone can treat patella tendonitis on the surface, and they'll get better over time just because that's the way our body heals. But if they go back to doing their activity or their sport, their patella tendonitis is going to come back if we never addressed why they had the tendonitis in the first place.
Right.
Whether it's coming from their hip, their trunk, their ankle. And I think that's really what people see the benefit in, is because, we're really looking at the whole scope of it and not just like, oh, you have tendonitis, let's do some soft tissue and stretch you a little bit and you're good to go.
Grab our shiny tools and scrape away,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So
use all this fancy tape.
Do you use technology to track motion at all? So any sort of biomechanical systems or stuff like that, or are you just visually looking at it?
Yeah, just visually. I mean, we're not stacked to where we have a whole biomechanical system. I'll rely, if someone needs it, like coming out from ACL, I'll refer over to USC and their staff.
Yeah.
But really we're just using our eyes, using slow motion with simplicity of an iPhone and different apps that we can use on the phone, but really watching it slow and really seeing where, when a softball girl comes in and she's throwing from second to first base, it's happening so fast that we have to look at it a little bit slower. And then from there we could see, is the pelvis not rotating enough, or is there, staying in internal rotation causing, less thoracic rotation. And so, we kind of make it simplified enough, but still applicable to how we can then relate it to each athlete and give them some feedback visually.
Yeah.
Through recording on the phone, and it kind of really goes a long way just for them to actually see it.
Nice. And so where does blood flow restriction kind of fit into your arsenal? Are you doing it more for weakness?
We don't really use it that much, Yeah, it's just sitting there. It's just for looks.
All right. Can you send those back?
No, we definitely, it's a tool that we use literally at the end of every rehab, whether it's someone post-surgical or it's someone that has, significant weakness in, one body part. I mean, I think that when people really try that, they really see the difference in what we're doing, because, we're not just sitting there trying to, do quad sets or knee extensions. And, it's going to take forever to kind of get that muscle back, the quad back. But we're really applying, what I learned from you, which was very little, but I, then applied, but then I applied, like what, we've done in the past with what we're doing with some research, and really kind of being creative with some of these programs that we've created in terms of, exercises and rest time versus active time, to really see the benefit in a lot of these things. And, one thing that we do use blood flow restriction for is, and I don't think we really talked about this, years ago when I took the course, but using it more for joint mobilizations, because I found that, if I want to get, more ankle dorsiflexion or hip mobility, I'll put that on, the blood flow on, and then do my manual therapy with it on,
Mm.
and really compound that with the second set of a strengthening exercise. I've seen kind of great results that way because I'm trying to move the ankle, with less blood flow in it. It's shown to have, like, I remeasured, and it's all clinical data, but
Yeah.
gotten more range of motion. Or someone that's had lack of knee extension following surgery, putting the cuff on and doing extension mobilizations it really made a difference. I just had a client yesterday doing that and got all the way down to the table. And we thought, this wasn't going to move. She might have to go in
Yeah.
to get like a manipulation or something.
Yeah. Who knows the mechanism there? There's a lot of different theories, but
Yeah.
that's the same. And one of the orthodox who does, I've been told, the most ACLs in the country down in Houston, they were saying the same thing with these post-op knees. Sometimes they're lacking extension, even when it looks like it's passively stuck. It's very stiff. That if they're going for that extension with blood flow restriction, that they get it back. And they have a huge trial going on right now, and so it'll be interesting to see what our range numbers look like if it is improved.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a different way to skin the cat and think about it. It's this thing too, like myostatin and TGF beta. It's a fibrotic pathway, and we're seeing that after injuries, that stuff is upregulated, and you get fibrosis in the muscle and in the joint. And Johnny Heward's group is looking at pharmacologically taking it down, but BFR looks like it takes it down too. And so you could even be seeing that there's less fibrosis. It might be open too. So who knows? Because that's always this. When you get this stuck ankle that's lacking dorsiflexion, it's you ask people, like, what do you do to get that motion back? It's kind of all over the place. So
yeah, and again, it's using a lot of different theories that I've kind of learned throughout my career, but now applying those with the BFR.
Nice.
So it's like a combination of treatments, and so that's really been really helpful in the sense of trying to get the best bang for our buck in that hour that we have to really see differences. Because I think once someone sees a difference like that, then they're bought in, they're locked in. They're like, okay, this is a real deal. Like, we'll be back multiple times.
No one that's done a BFR session usually leaves and feels like something wasn't done to them.
Right.
You're hoping they come back because you didn't do too much. Like, holy shit.
Right.
And I guess we should touch on too, there is the USC research that you're involved with in a big way, looking at some hamstring muscle damage and recovery, and based on some anecdotal stuff from the Rams that we saw as well.
So we're definitely trying to look to see if what we know from eccentric training to build muscle is that something which causes always the soreness and people taking time to recover from. Can we get that same strength gain using the BFR with only since knowing the science of BFR, only 30% of their 1 rep max,
right?
So being able to strengthen at 30% with the BFR, will that give us the same results as trying to strengthen someone to build muscle at regular training? And so far we've seen really good results, and obviously it's one of those things that takes time, but we're really applying it to on Modus's end. We're applying it to these professional athletes that are have strength deficits, that they can't really function on a soreness level because they're in competition, or they're always training.
Right.
So strengthening at 30%, which is for them very little, but they still get the same muscle build and hypertrophy is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So we're using that with the InBody.
Yeah, that InBody is a very cool, fancy way for us to measure muscle damage changes non-invasively, which was great too. Helped us get through the IRB much easier. But that's what so Paul Silvestri, University of Florida, years ago, that's where we first started noticing this, was with their hamstring injuries. We wrote a little kind of fluff piece in a magazine journal about it. But that's what people don't. Everyone's eccentrics are hotter than a sunburn right now, but it's that thing. You got this injured guy. He's in season. You go do some sort of heavy eccentrics on him. Nordics or whatever, the dude's done for weeks. And I was with one pro soccer, and their coach was like, I don't want my players to do it even healthy doing those anymore, because the players are always feeling this nagging kind of soreness in their hamstrings. And so maybe off season, but we got to find a different way in season.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's something that even in the off season, I think people don't want to be knocked out for a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Because they have training to do. I mean, there's really no off season for these guys. There may be like a couple weeks, maybe after the Super Bowl, but on the NFL side, I mean, they're back training and working out like pretty quickly. And so if they have any kind of injury or anything lagging, then they can't be held back or out because of muscle soreness for that long.
Yeah.
And so on the rehab side, being able to apply this really makes a big difference, because, you know, I tell them like, hey, look, we're not even pushing any weight here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're getting the same kind of workout that you can be getting in the weight room, you know, twisting it more for the rehab side. We're not personal trainers or strength coaches, but, you know, hey, you know, we can really apply this as a way to help build strength without, you know, causing a lot of soreness or damage.
Right. Yeah, no, it's awesome. So I'm excited to see where those results come. And it seems like when I was there last couple of months ago, we got some promising pilot data already. So we'll see, man. Well, dude, all right, we're going long here. I knew you would ramble forever, but so anything else you want to add that you can think of discussing with Modus or the new Jordan facility?
I think another thing, you know, and, you know, when I was in PT school, we never got this, but we're, you know, able to teach it more to the younger DPT students now. So we're applying it over at USC. I'm helping get the word out for you, doing a little guest lecturing at USC. So I think that's huge. I mean, I think more PT schools should really, even though they can't get a unit, I think what's happening now is more clinics are getting units. And so when students do their rotations, that time in the clinic shouldn't be the first time that they're actually seeing the equipment. So I think it's really good that schools are getting more involved in wanting to learn more, even though it may not be like actually using it all the time. But you know, as long as they get some type of exposure to it, I think is great.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall. So I think it's awesome. Like USC is obviously a leader, and they're doing it. UT Health Science Center here. We do some advanced courses. I also lectured a few other places around the country, introducing it, and guys like you, obviously, who are kind of the clinical experts now. The APTA CAPTA meeting, looking at what's going to be on accreditation for schools, just happened, and BFR was one of the top ones of trying to see how they can roll it into PT students are taught that in school, rolling out. So it's going to happen. So no, I think if you should be exposed early on. So cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I want to come check out our new Jordan thing, and
definitely
go upstairs and whoop your ass with my cowboy boots on and some basketball. Are you at CSM this year or next year, whatever, in February?
Yeah, in DC. Yeah, presenting on one of the days. I don't know which day, but yeah, we have our crew with Stefania Bell again.
I know. So I got that whole week. It's Extremity War Injuries Conference, first part of the week, and then the last part of the week I'll be there at CSM. They're all in DC, so I'm going to be hanging out there. So we got to chill out this year, all right?
we can't do what we did last year.
So let me end it on this story, all right? So for one, we're in New Orleans, which is already trouble, and I used to live there, so I was ready to just kind of show you guys a night and go crazy. We ended up at a bar. Remember the crazy bartender who was just like on some sort of drugs and yelling at us?
We couldn't even get a drink or something.
You were worried you couldn't get your credit card back. So anyways, we went crazy. And so at the end of the night, I think y'all kept going to go gamble or something in Harrah's, and I went home. Yeah. I didn't give a talk in the morning. And
you're weak sauce, man. You get it.
So I pulled up the phone, and your text said, I literally had to walk home sideways last night. I can see walking sideways, like with your hands on the wall. But I don't know if you remember.
I don't know how I got back to my hotel room. I have no idea.
It might have not been your room. But one of the girls with us, she wanted to go to dance at a gay bar. Do you remember that? And she's like, well, you're from here. Where are the gay bars at? I'm like, why would I know where the gay bars are at to go dancing? So anyways, I don't remember it, but I guess I looked it up on my phone because when I picked my phone up in the morning and turned it on Google, it said, where are the gay bars in New Orleans? So I cleared the history. I didn't want my daughters and my wife to see that when I got home.
I think you may have secretly went there on your own.
I might have. I don't remember. I could have, man. But it's all good. It's all good.
New Orleans is a tough place to be, man.
Yeah. Well, we'll be too cold up in DC to
right.
Too crazy.
Right. Yeah. It should be fun though.
Yeah. All right. So we'll hook up if I don't see you before. All right, brother. It's been great.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, and we'll be in touch soon.
So everyone, check out Modus. I mean, dude, if you want to see, this is the PT life. Modus is it. You're doing things right, cash pay, taking care of Real Housewives of Orange County. But no, check out his Instagram's got great stuff, like cool content to help people. So I appreciate you, man. All right.
Appreciate you guys. All right. Bye.
All right, welcome back. And so we're gonna take a couple questions that have been submitted to us from the podcast. If you have questions, hit us up at info@owensrecoveryscience.com. We love getting these questions. If we take your question and answer it on the podcast, you get a sweet, nice, not a cheap, swaggy Owens Recovery Science Earn Your Deflate t-shirt. So please keep your questions coming. So here's the first question. This is from Matt. I'm wondering if there's any additive effects of creatine supplementation with BFR, i.e. is there greater increases in muscle cross-sectional area or strength gains beyond what you'd expect with just regular resistance training? Given the different mechanisms behind both types of training, I thought maybe an identical creatine dosing protocol may have different effects based on the type of training being performed. Is there any research on this topic? Is it something you've seen anecdotally in your clinic setting? By the way, I'm loving the podcast. Keep it up. So awesome, Matt. Thanks for loving the podcast and listening. So creatine, you guys have thoughts on it?
I mean, obviously there's no real research looking at BFR with creatine versus traditional lifting with creatine that I've seen.
No.
I could be wrong there because there's a ton of research and I feel like I'm always trying to catch up on what's coming out. I don't know in my mind that there's enough that would say, the creatine supplementation itself would drive a really significant change if you had traditional heavy lifting versus BFR. I mean, it looks like BFR from a hypertrophy standpoint might win a little bit anyway, I guess, depending on how you're approaching it. But yeah, I don't know enough to say that it would be significantly different in my mind.
Well, and so you're right. Obviously, we don't have any creatine and BFR data out there. We do have a lot of anecdotals because, working with all these pros and college teams and just athletes, a lot of them take creatine, but we can't really take away, are they making significant hypertrophy changes or strength changes just because they're on creatine? So there is maybe some, again, translational stuff we can look at with this. So old study, I think it's almost 20 years old, looked at in a rat model. So they basically removed the soleus and the gastroc. And they do these, we did it in a pig model. It's crazy. So they'll remove soleus and gastroc, and then they will do things to see, like we did E-stim, to see does the plantaris muscle hypertrophy significantly more. And like the plantaris will get crazy big sometimes in these animals. And so they were basically doing an exercise bouts with or without creatine after that. And the rats that had the creatine on board had more hypertrophy, and they had significantly more satellite cell content or stem cell content. And then that's been repeated in a human trial that when you take creatine, you do have more satellite cell content that's measured or stem cell content again. So if that's true, and we are really trying to go after those myogenic stem cells, the addition of creatine might bump that up a little bit and kind of supercharge it, which if you have more myogenic stem cells, that means it can equal more muscle cells, which means next time you're taking your protein bolus, you might get more muscle hypertrophy. And there's also one of my favorite things, this whole myostatin thing. There's at least one study that's shown that creatine did have a reduction in myostatin. So if myostatin goes down, your body is basically able to put on more muscle. So less myostatin, good. And so those are a couple of mechanisms that we see both happen with BFR and creatine might be able to supplement that. So I would say go for it, with a caveat that we do have it as a risk factor on our list. It's not a contra, but there is study out there of someone who developed rhabdo after surgery, who was taking creatine supplements. But it was really, this person was being a knucklehead and taking very high doses of creatine. What was it? Was it like 10 grams? What is it? I don't.
10 grams a day for 6 months.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 6. I think it was leading up to the surgery, and then they developed rhabdo.
Okay, yeah. So I would say go for it, and do it the right way, if you're interested in it. And again, just talking about protein is something we're going to talk about with our patients, we hope. Maybe talking about, the collagen-based stuff pre-tendon loading, Keith Barr's work, is something that we'll talk about with our patients, and we'll get into that probably in a later podcast. But maybe if creatine increases satellite cell content and downregulates myostatin, that's a fair conversation if your patient is cleared to use something like that. Again, you would probably have to get medical clearance to discuss that with a patient. Any other thoughts on creatine and BFR, guys?
I mean, I think it's like you're saying, it could be a good addition to BFR. I mean, it makes sense mechanistically, but I think what Matt was trying to ask is the comparison between BFR and light load with creatine versus heavy load with creatine, and would that be significantly different?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Maybe just a little bit of hypertrophy,
right?
Differences in the BFR side, maybe. So yeah, now sure. I asked Trisha, our dietitian, her thoughts on it, and she said obviously there's no BFR research with it, but she did want to put this out. Creatine supplementation is like carb loading, that it increases the amount of nutrients used for this metabolic pathway. I would not recommend increasing the dose beyond the recommended dose for conventional training. BFR is intended to speed recovery from injury, and creatine is intended to enable the individual to lift heavier weight with an added supply of the fuel source and subsequently increase muscle mass. I would recommend not starting creatine until an established BFR routine is undertaken, to allow them to get used to the new training first. And I hate to rely on anecdotal evidence, as people tend to overestimate the benefits of a supplement when it was actually just the work they were doing. One mistake people make with creatine is they only take it on workout days, and they don't take it with carb. They need to take 0.03 to 0.1 grams a kilogram per day, every day, with 30 grams of carb within 1 hour post-workout, when taken on workout days. And creatine, in all caps, monohydrate. So once again, Trisha, a great answer. And our certified providers, we have a private group, and these kind of questions get thrown around all the time. And folks like Trisha, as well as us and all sorts of other experts, will go on and help answer anyone's questions like this. So thanks. All right. So creatine, that's good. Maybe that's something we'll see from a study on down the line. The other question's from Jason, and Jason says, what's the overall consensus on using BFR when someone's in a cast, specifically in a lower limb cast from the knee down? So you guys' thoughts on that?
I think on that front, we just use our...
Go ahead, Kyle.
Zach.
No, Kyle, go ahead.
I'd say, I think on that front, you look at those, the Kubota study and the Linicky swelling studies, and you kind of think in the context of using the inflation, deflation of the tourniquet at some level to create a swelling response in the muscle. So we're using that cell swelling mechanism that we talk about with regard to being able to turn on protein synthesis and fight that disuse atrophy that you would see in the limb. As we teach in the course, of course, we always want to incorporate exercise. And so the nice thing about like a lower limb cast that's below the knee is, shoot, man, you can go after quad, you can go after hamstring, with your BFR stuff, or even lifting heavy in that regard, at least in some cases. And so I think, you're looking for probably about 5 inflations, a minimum of around 25 minutes of restriction, and then incorporating exercise where you can. That's how I do it in the clinic. Maybe it's maybe you're pedaling a bike, maybe you're just kind of pumping them out on the total gym, whatever you can be doing, you want to be doing.
Right. And so the cellular swelling response is basically the muscle swells, which means the myocyte swells, which means you potentially are driving protein synthesis. We're not sure, but there seems to be a sparing effect of the muscle. And so the swelling right under the cuff is usually significantly more in the muscle just distal than really far away. So we don't see a ton of swelling. It's almost like it's just more taut. Some people definitely swell more than others, but you can tell there's just a mild pump in the lower leg. So, if you're worried about, well, it's going to cause way too much swelling and they're going to outgrow their cast here. I've never seen that, even in an NBA player that we had in a full cast. This seemed pretty tight. And so that's not the problem. But like you said, Kyle, you can keep the upper limb strong just by applying the tourniquet and doing very light exercises. But the swelling effect on down the line might be a way to preserve less muscle loss, right? What was your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I was just really going to kind of say the same thing you guys did. I mean, the Kubota study did cast immobilization at the ankle, and they did the self-swelling protocol for twice a day for 2 weeks, and no reported adverse effects where they had to cut the cast off and redo the cast or anything like that. So I think from a safety standpoint, you're good. And then, we have the muscle response, as well. So whatever, the concern was, whether it was safety or muscle, I think, you're good to go.
Yeah, and I'll say, where we started this the way we do it at the Department of Defense, the tibia is the most injured long bone from the wars. We had tons of lower leg cam boots and casts and frames that we were doing BFR on like crazy without any issues at all. It looks like our study at Hospital Special Surgery on Achilles repair might be ramping up. So hopefully we have an answer with Achilles, which will be fantastic. If the first 6 weeks, while you're basically doing nothing, you're doing BFR to keep the thigh strong, but we're also slowing the atrophy train at the calf, that's a huge win. And anecdotally, that's what we've seen in the professional leagues, college leagues, and clinically. So now we hope the clinical trial will back that up. All right. Anything else, you guys? Once again, we went long. What the hell's wrong with us? We're just ramblers. Well,
I think that's all I got.
Oh, you're worn out. All right. Well, cool. Thanks, everybody. So if you like the podcast, please go on to iTunes or whatever your podcast platform is and rate us and give us any feedback. That would be awesome. Send us questions. Jason and Matt will be shooting off your T-shirts, and I'm off to Kimchi-ville and hope to have some fun over in Korea. And you guys, safe travels. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Owens Recovery Science Podcast. Owens Recovery Science is a single source for PTs, OTs, ATCs, DCs, MDs, and other medical professionals seeking certification in personalized blood flow restriction rehabilitation training. Find them online at owensrecoveryscience.com.